Elizabeth McDonald, Scott Martin and Jack Howe make up our team of analysts this morning. Now, at the top of the hour, I walk back my long-standing criticism of Elon Musk. I now see the guy as a manufacturing visionary and not a P.T. Barnum showman type of guy. What do you say to that, Jack Howe?
I root for him. I think we will look back in this period and we'll say we'll be driving electric cars in the future. We'll look back and we'll say Tesla pulled that forward 10 years. But 2017 was an awful time to buy the stock. It's possible that this can be a visionary person and an overpriced stock at the same time. It's a story stock. There's no free cash flow. It's not self-funding. I don't like it. I'm rooting for them. Don't buy it.
That's interesting. OK, we got you. Scott Martin, I'm saying that Musk is a visionary, that he has started to produce these middle-income cars, all electric, all American. I say I've changed my opinion on this guy and his position in our economic society. What say you?
I agree, Stuart. I mean, Musk could be so crazy that maybe he's just so sane. I mean, it's funny. I like getting involved with these guys, though, when it comes to stocks, because it's just like with our clients. When some of them own Tesla, you just have to know what you own. And you are going to own, to Jack's point, a volatile stock, a stock that moves around a lot. But I'll tell you something even more kind of interesting about Tesla. It's one of the biggest shorted stocks in the market. And what that means is you have a lot of people that, even though it sounds totally un-American, almost, I guess, democratic or something that Democrats would do, is short the stock and bet against it. So what that means is that profits only come if this stock goes down, if some people hold a short position. So when you have a big pop like this or a good earnings report, this is what shoots the stock up. So in reality, there's a lot of haters against this stock, and that's a reason that I like to own it.
Liz, I got to point out what you pointed out yesterday. Tesla at this price is worth now about $54 billion. General Motors is worth $50 billion. I mean,
yeah, they make
talk about a discrepancy.
Yeah, they make umpteen more cars. There is a serious debate going on for the entire electric car industry. Can the U.S. power grid handle all of these electric cars? The answer is no right now. And so if you want to have the power to do it, right, you got to get fracking, you got to get nat gas in to get the power for those electric vehicles, and a power grid upgrade. That would cap that market in a hot minute.
Check this out, please. It was on November 22nd last year that we hit 19,000. January 25th, 2017, 20,000. March 1st, 21,000. August 2nd, 22,000. And look at this. These are the big names which led the rally. Actually, not so much the big five technology companies. It was Boeing, McDonald's, and Apple. They contributed about half of the Dow's 2,000-point rally this year. That's a heavy concentration in those three stocks. Jack?
And as the Wall Street Journal points out, those companies have a heavy portion of their earnings coming from overseas.
Right.
So America's stock market is really largely dependent on the recovery in Europe right now. But I think at these heights, in terms of the market hitting new highs, things are looking slightly expensive. If I look forward over the next 10 years, I think average returns are going to be subpar. But where are you going to beat them? In bonds? No. Stocks are still your best bet right now.
OK, so they're the bet. You still say if you've got money and you want to invest it, stocks are the place to go.
I think so.
And
Lizzie?
the irony is the D.C. swamp, all the D.C. chaos, has shot that dollar down to a 15-month low. So when international companies book their profits from overseas, basically they can use more dollars. It's artificial looking, but it looks like their profits are going up because that dollar has plunged to a 15-month low.
All right, Scott Martin, you've got to go out on a limb and say that we are now embarking on the second or third leg of the Trump rally, started from 22,000.
Hey, man, I'm already on that limb. I'm looking for people to join us. I told you a month or so ago when I was in town, which was wonderful, by the way, I'm sure, at least for me, that once we get this tax reform through, if it's going to happen, we're going to see Dow 25K. But I want to say something to Jack's point. I get it about lower expected returns, and he's absolutely right about avoiding bonds because that's where return isn't. But don't you guys think that just given supply and demand in general, if all of a sudden people are chasing stocks because that's where they think the returns are, guess what? We're going to get the returns because demand is going to push up price.
OK, fair point. You want a quick answer?
I just want to say, if you're calling this the second leg of the Trump rally, you must call it the 12th leg of the Obama rally. I see the same rally that's continued for years and years in the U.S.
Whoa.
It's a 9-year bull run.
You changed your mind about Musk. Maybe there's some more mind changing coming. I don't know. I'm just giving it a shot.
Dream on, Sunshine. Dream on. Okay. Yesterday marked the 70th straight trading session without a 1% gain for the S&P 500. Something that is a sell signal.
Yeah, that's the longest stretch in about 10 years. So is that a concern right now? Is it?
Is it? Is it, Jack Howe? Is it?
You know,
apparently not.
Market movements are kind of smooth right now. There's low volatility. I think that's a symptom of all this money flowing into index funds. I'm not particularly worried about, you could see a sell-off at any time. I'm not worried about a crash because you usually get an economic recession that triggers that, and I don't see signs of a recession right on the horizon.
All right, for the benefit of our radio listeners, and we have lots of them, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is going nowhere thus far this morning. We're down 3 points, 2.5 points at 22,011. Now, let me go through the big tech names. All of them this morning are down, at least in the early going, not by much. Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Facebook, Microsoft, all of them on the downside. Look at Avon. Remember that name? I was brought up on Avon, as a matter of fact. Ding dong, Avon calling, etc., etc. They had ding dongs
that was
in
really
England.
good.
Yeah, you like that? All right. Avon.
I thought it was like back in the 80s. That was awesome.
Back in the 80s, we're talking 1950, Sunshine.
Oh, come on.
Way back when. Oh,
You're
yeah.
not that old.
Yes, I am. Avon lost money. Sales were down. The CEO is stepping down. There's pressure from inside an activist investor, Barrington Capital, and that stock is down 10%. $3 a share on Avon. Weak sales at Yum Brands. Pizza Hut struggling, apparently. It also owns, of course, KFC, Taco Bell. Jack, and the Yum Brands is down 1%. Got it. You say that restaurants across the board are a disaster? Okay, well, tell me why.
People are trying to figure it out. I think it has a lot to do with long-term food deflation. Food is, groceries have gotten cheap. I think restaurants are out of step with health trends. They're out of step with, what millennials want. You had some chains that were trying to cater to millennials. One that comes to mind is Chipotle, with like in-restaurant hands-on preparation of food, local sourcing. That hasn't worked out too well with all these illness outbreaks in there. So there's just, I think the restaurant group, there's also been way too much growth. Far too many restaurants open relative to demand.
I think 3 words, you just demolished the industry with hands-on preparation.
Oh, yeah, that's a killer.
Right, that's a killer.
I lost my shirt on Boston Market, and I've never invested in a restaurant since. I lost my shirt on People Express. Remember that airline?
Yeah.
I've never invested in an airline since. Scott Martin, why are you laughing?
Because it's just a funny statement. I liked People's Express. I used to fly People's Express with my parents from Columbus to Kansas City all the time. I love the airlines. I don't blame you. That seemed like a great investment, although it was terrible. What's funny, though, about the restaurants is, the food industry is really tough. Diners are very discerning, right? Tastes change, habits change, and so therefore you can lose business in a whim. Bad news, obviously, is really more impactful in the food industry than anywhere else. In food prices, Jack's right. There's a lot of deflation there, but food prices can back up in price any second, and so therefore you got trouble on the margins if you're in the restaurant business, which is not easy. Rather, it
and
makes
besides,
it really tough.
I can go to a supermarket and get it all prepared for me, carry it home and eat it. I mean, that's how it works these days. Well, I've got to talk about guns, and specifically the gun maker Sturm Ruger. People are no longer worried about the president taking the guns away, and so demand for guns is down, and Sturm Ruger, which is a gun maker, is down 12% this morning. Would you buy, Scott, would you buy Sturm Ruger at $50 a share?
No, I wouldn't, Stuart. And, it's interesting. I've never really liked the gun makers or the gun business in general from the standpoint of these stocks. I feel like they get overdone really quickly, and then they take the elevator down. They kind of climb up the stairs and then jump out the window. So, to me, it's an interesting take, though, because you saw a lot of the gun makers rally up into what they thought was going to be, or at least I guess the experts thought was going to be a Hillary victory, which wasn't. And so, therefore, with the less gun regulation that we have now than what was proposed, at least from HRC, you see a lot of these gun makers pull back.
Sturm Ruger should start contributing to some Democratic campaigns. They need a good old-fashioned gun scare to get sales going again.
I think you're right. Don't forget about Apple. You can't forget about Apple. Big pop yesterday, up about 5 or 6%, I think. Down just a fraction this morning, 54 cents lower. You want to give me a price target in the future for Apple? Where do you think it might get to? on the upside?
Here. That's what I've written at Barron's.
Come on, Jack.
It's there now. No, I don't think the stock is done, but I think it was super cheap. Now I think it's fairly priced. The most exciting thing about Apple is not the upcoming iPhone that everybody's looking at. It's the swelling service revenue that becomes a smooth annuity of profits. It makes Apple less dependent on hits. It makes it worth more. I think the stock can still work from here.
All right, Scott, 156 on Apple now. Where do you think it's going to on the upside?
I'd say 200. I've never heard anybody say the price target is here. I kind of like that. I liked his alliteration on the swelling service revenue that's sweeping or whatever that was. That was good. I obviously can't even repeat it. It was so good. But the reality is this. To me, Stuart, it is about the iPhone 8. It's about the fact that this thing every week or every month keeps going up in price. It's going to have more and more features. They're building the esteem of this thing. And by the way, it's going to cost like $1,500.
Whoa.
That's awesome margin for the company. I love it.
Okay. We just flashed on the screen there. Breaking news. The Dow dropped below 22,000. It's not down much. It's down about just a few points, but we broke below 22,000. I've got to say thank you to Jack and to Scott. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Back to the big...